After 40 years, I'm finally going to get closure to this and clear my name.
For the first time in 40 years, Chesapeake native Roy Watford III is a free man.
Words of a wrongly convicted man determined to move on with his life. Maurice Hastings spent nearly 40 years in prison for a murder he did not commit.
So here we have a video of Kat highlighting two gentlemen who have been cleared, exonerated by the office of the Manhattan DA. Now, isn't that interesting? Here we are a few days away from the February 6th sentencing of Jonathan Majors. And I've highlighted, of course, several times that the Manhattan DA's office seems to be very focused on prosecuting three high-profile black men. Adam Foss, who, of course, was acquitted in November of 2023 in a case I think was extremely questionable, to say the least. To be paired really with another questionable case, which was the Jonathan Majors case. Once again, I'll say it, it remains a fact to this day, which this is February 2nd, 2024, that there is only one person who has said anything publicly with her name attached to it that is negative about Jonathan Majors, and that would be Grace Jabbari. There isn't anyone else. Rolling Stone and the rumor mill and everything else can say whatever they like. There is nobody who has put their name to a negative story about Jonathan Majors except for one person. And when you have Grace Jabbari, and when you have a full-blown trial, wouldn't you expect to see somebody take the stand? Wouldn't you expect to see that the Manhattan DA's office, if Jonathan Majors is such a terrible person, wouldn't you think it would be pretty easy to find at least one other person that would say similar things that Grace Jabbari said on the stand? It turns out that no, it wouldn't be easy because there was nobody else. There's only been one person. This man has worked on several films now. He, of course, went to the Yale Drama School. He's run into many people. Obviously, when you do acting, you have to deal with a lot of other people, other actors, directors, producers, agents. I mean, there's a lot of people in the world of an actor, and particularly on his level. And yet there's only one person that is public with their name attached to it saying that, oh, I had a problem with this guy. Nobody else. This is not a country that has had a historic problem over 405 years with people popping up out of the woodwork complaining about going public with their complaints with regard to black men. So I'm not sure why it would be a problem now. I highly recommend this video from Kat. I find it very interesting. The Manhattan DA's office is making this big announcement about these two gentlemen who've been exonerated. I would state once again that there's a history of this. We see it a lot, certainly from the work of the Innocence Project. I have certainly seen cases where white males were exonerated, and some women come up too where they were falsely accused, and then they get exonerated by the work of the Innocence Project. But the one core constituency, the demographic that keeps popping up again and again, and even more interesting, as in this case, from cases in the 1980s in particular. So it's the 80s and the 70s, and a lot of times the 90s. We have a over-incarcerating country that we live in. The United States leads the world in the rate of incarceration. And all of a sudden we have the Manhattan DA's office with this special unit that has figured out that these two gentlemen should have never been in jail. Well, they're not alone, and I'm going to run the video mashup again that I created a few videos ago, several other high-profile cases that have been in the media where folks have been exonerated who've been in jail for 20 and 30 and in one case 40 years, and they were innocent. It's absolutely crazy that would ever happen to anybody. At any rate, I find it interesting that this announcement was made. It's a really good video by Kat. I highly recommend it, and the link will be in the description. Good luck. I'll be back soon.
Chesapeake man has been exonerated after being convicted more than 40 years ago.
Reporter Megan Shin joins us now. And Megan, what does he have to say?
For the first time in 40 years, Chesapeake native Roy Watford III is a free man.
Words of a wrongly convicted man determined to move on with his life. Maurice Hastings spent nearly 40 years in prison for a murder he did not commit, and he's finally free now.
That wrongly convicted him of murder.
Mr. Hastings is now finally able to clear his name and walk free.
Maurice Hastings is now 69 years old.
It's a man who spent more than 40 years in prison for 3 murders he did not commit is now free. A Missouri judge ruled that Kevin Strickland, now 62 years old, was wrongfully convicted.
The judge and lawyers praised Denny for steadfastly maintaining his innocence over 3 long decades, even though making a false guilty plea would have meant an earlier release.
How long were you in prison?
31 years, 9 months, 18 days, and 12 hours.
You have it down to the hours.
Yes, sir.
A Memphis, Tennessee jury convicted McKinney of burglary in 1978. The victim identified him as one of 2 men who attacked her in her bedroom. He was sentenced to 115 years. In 2008, DNA testing of evidence scientifically excluded McKinney as a suspect.
Conviction from 1976 in Westchester County overturned. The 72-year-old was exonerated by DNA, which made history as the oldest exoneration by DNA in the United States.
After 40 years, I'm finally going to get closure to this and clear my name.
In 1975, the Vietnam veteran was...
And Vincent served 44 years here at Louisiana State Penitentiary, but he was supposed to serve 100. That was the sentence. For the last 30 or so years, he kept trying to tell judges, I didn't get a fair trial, and here's the information, and they just dismissed him left and right. Get out of here, get out of here.
Simmons had been in prison for 44 years and tried for most of that time to get his conviction overturned.
Petition is granted. The end of Brian Banks' ordeal was marked by tears after a judge threw out the charge that had sent him to prison for more than 5 years.
It's interesting to listen to some people in the news talk so much about the things that we know are true as women, the patriarchy, misogyny. It's true. It's real. It has real life effects. It's been around since the biblical days. Like, there is misogyny. There is, in fact, patriarchy. There's no doubt about that. But there's also racism. And in our country, that has had a particular impact on the group that Mr. Majors belongs to. So it's sort of interesting to me. I wonder, when I see the term Darvo, I wonder, does it apply to people who were probably denying for the last 20 and 30 years of their life in prison that they had done something? Are they attacking the people who got them in prison? You know, this latest story that just dropped today, the 19th of January, involved a crooked cop that was prosecuting people and arresting people who are not guilty. So when that person gets arrested and they're sitting in jail for 20 years and they're saying, I didn't do it, they're denying, okay, which is the first part of this acronym. And they're probably then attacking the people who put them in jail. And then I guess they're doing reverse victim when they say, hey, I'm really the victim here because I didn't do this and I'm serving a prison sentence that I shouldn't be serving. So I always wonder with some of these theories from some of these sociologists, you know, how does real life victims of injustice fit into their equation?
He spent 16 years in prison after being wrongly convicted. His accuser, a best-selling author, is now apologizing, saying she's truly sorry. But how do you undo such a life-altering mistake? Here's Les Trent.
Tears of joy as a man wrongly accused of is exonerated after spending 16 years in prison. Anthony Broadwater, now 61 years old, broke down in tears when he heard the judge throw out the conviction.
Mr. Broadwater cannot get those 16 years back.
His accuser was Alice Sebold.
A man who was wrongfully imprisoned and at one point sentenced to death in Oklahoma is now free. This is 71-year-old Glenn Simmons, seen here with his lawyer and loved ones, reading an order from an Oklahoma judge declaring his innocence, a declaration that he's been waiting for 5 decades. Simmons spent a total of 48 years, 1 month, 18 days behind bars for a crime he did not commit.